Hello everyone. In this lesson, we're going to set up a URL or route or page that only admin users should be able to visit. There are at least 100 different ways that you could set that up, but we're going to use something called a gate to power that permission check. Let's jump into the action. Okay, so in this window, I'm logged in with Brad, and you know that in the previous lesson, we said that this user account is an admin user. So imagine if we wanted there to be a URL of /admins-only, and it's in the name, right? Only an admin should be able to visit this page. So before we even ask ourselves what in the world is a gate, let's first just go set up this route. So just Control Command P, look for your web.php file. It doesn't matter where, either at the top or the bottom, but let's just say, route : get semicolon. And the URL pattern would just be / admins-only. And then because this is just such a quick fictional example, we don't even need to have a method in a controller. So comma, we can literally just give it an anonymous inline function. So I wouldn't do this if you were actually trying to stay organized. That's why we're almost always using a controller throughout this course. But just for this quick and dirty example, imagine if all the function did was just return a string of text that says, only admins should be able to see this page. But imagine it was actually returning a Blade template and, doing something interesting. So you can save that and then you refresh. Cool. Only we haven't protected the URL. So if I take this URL in this window where I'm Barksalot, I should not be able to view that, but we haven't restricted it yet. So there are a million different ways that you could perform that check. All you need to do is look at the current logged in user, right? So you could use the auth function and see, does this user have a true value for isAdmin? But as we saw with a policy, the idea is that you wouldn't want to perform that raw mechanical check, right, of looking for the isAdmin column value. You wouldn't want to spell that out more than once in your application. So the idea is, imagine if we had, 100 different actions that only admins should be able to perform. And you want to spell that logic check just once and then use that same expressive verbiage of can or cannot. Well, that's exactly when a gate is super useful. So what is a gate? Well, in some ways a gate is similar to a policy. In other ways, a gate is totally different. So it's similar to a policy, except a policy is tied to a model or a resource, right? So a policy has verbiage like create, read, update, and delete, right? CRUD actions. It's tied to a model. A gate is a lot simpler. So a gate is when you just define a single verbiage like admins only, or saying like a user should be able to fly or jump. Some sort of action that isn't a CRUD action tied to a model. If that doesn't make sense yet, that's okay. It's way easier to just show you how to set up a gate than try to explain it with just words. So do this with me. In VS Code, I want you to look in your app folder and then go into your providers folder and go into the file that's named auth service provider. I want you to scroll down to about line number 25, but essentially we're looking for the function that's named boot. Now check this out. Below this line where it's registering policies, we see this comment. You can get rid of the comment, but this is where we are free to spell out a gate. So what in the world is a gate? Well, let's just set one up. So we just say uppercase gate to use the Laravel class, call its static method that's named define, semicolon. Okay, and now in these parentheses, we give it two things. So A, comma, B. The first thing we give it is a label for this action or this gate that we're defining. We can make up any name we want, but why don't we call it, like visit admin pages? The idea is it's going to be true or false, right? Can the current user visit admin pages or not? And then instead of B, the second thing we give it is a function. So just an inline function, parentheses, curly brackets. And in the parentheses for this function, let's say $user. And then in the body of this function, it's our job to return true or false. We spell out, should the current user have this ability? So I would literally just return, and then for the current user, look inside it for isAdmin. And then if that triple equals 1, well, then that should be true. They should have this ability. Otherwise, this will return false. They should not have this ability. So you can go ahead and save this, and you can see right away I forgot the semicolon at the end of that line. I've written a little bit of too much JavaScript in my life, but if you go ahead and save, now the question becomes, well, how do we actually leverage this check? How do we make this be enforced so that Barks-a-Lot can't visit this URL? Whoops, and right away, before we go any further, I should let you know that Laravel, at the top of that auth service provider file, it already has a reference to the gate class, but it's commented out. So all you need to do is just remove the comment at the start of this line, right? We just want to be sure to use that namespace of gate. So you can save that file again. So now the question is, in this window, I'm logged in as Barks-a-Lot. Barks-a-Lot should not be able to see this URL. So how do we actually enforce that gate rule? Well, there are a few different ways. First, let me show you the controller way, and then after that, I'll show you the route middleware way. So let's start with the controller. Go back into your routes file because we didn't actually point this function towards a controller method. We just spelled it out in line. But within this function, you could say if, parentheses, curly brackets, and then use the gate class and say if the gate allows, and then we named it the ability visit admin pages. So if the gate allows that for the current user, I would just, move this line to live in here. If that's not true, then just return and say, you cannot view this page. Cool, so if I refresh as the Brad user, I can still see the admins only, but if I refresh as Barks-a-Lot, beautiful, you cannot view this page. So you can use a gate like this in a controller, or let me show you my preferred way. I like to use a middleware within our routes file. So let me put this back to the way it was where it's not protected. So just back like this, right? So now Barks-a-Lot can indeed view it again. And let me show you what I like to do. If you go back into your routes file, well, we're still in our routes file just because that's an inline function. But the idea is the way we just did it, that would be within a controller method. And now imagine if this was pointing towards a controller, but at the very end, just like we used middleware with our policies, you could just use a middleware and say middleware, and you could use the exact same syntax as we used with our policies. So you could just say, quotes, if the current user can, and then remember we named the gate ability, visit admin pages. So you can hit save. If you refresh as Brad, whoops, you can see I have a typo. When I tried to call middleware, I forgot the greater than symbol. If you save that though, the Brad user can visit the admin page. In the Barks-a-Lot window, beautiful, it's unauthorized. Cool, so big picture, what was the moral of this story? What was the point of this video? Or, what is the point of a gate? A gate is very similar to a policy. It's just that a policy is designed for CRUD operations for a specific model or resource. A gate is a little bit simpler, right? A gate is where you just spell out a single ability. So it's not, create, read, update, delete. It's just the name of an ability. You say true or false, that's it. And then you're free to leverage it in your controllers and your routes, so on and so forth. Cool. In our next lesson, we are really going to change gears now. We are going to learn how to let users upload their own avatar photographs. This should be a ton of fun. This is really going to make our application come alive. So let's keep our momentum rolling, and I will see you then.